In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
In my various journeys, I've encountered a variety of atheists, and I engaged in conversation with them because I was interested to know why they were atheists. And it was very interesting. The vast majority of times, it wasn't a question of belief in God. It really came down to the fact that they didn't really like God. They thought God was something that was less than good, less than loving. And I was a bit perplexed by that, as if God had become now the enemy instead of the Lord of life and love and peace. If we go back a bit to Genesis, we have the Lord telling Adam and Eve, do not eat of this tree of good and evil, because you will die. What was he saying to them? He was saying, first of all, Adam and Eve were basically spiritual infants. They weren't fully matured. They were just starting to grow in their spirituality and in their relationship with God. So he's basically saying, if you eat of this tree of good and evil, you're going to be way over your heads. It's going to destroy you. It will kill you. It's almost like giving sirloin steak to a newborn infant. We don't do that because not only are we going to injure the infant, but we may kill the infant by doing that. And God knew that. But what happened? God was slandered. And this was the slander. First of all, Satan said, are you kidding me? Don't eat of this? Of course, because if you do, you'll be as of God. God is jealous of you. He doesn't want you to go into that. And then human beings start taking over and interpreting this passage and saying, when God said, if you eat of this, you will surely die, God was really saying to them, in reality, I care about you. Don't do this. Because if you do, you're going to estrange yourself from me, from life. You're going to go in a direction that you're not even equipped for. You don't even know what you're doing. And you're going to fall. And you're going to end up in lost and in desolation. Don't do this. Because surely you will die. Don't do this. But an interpretation came. And unfortunately it came through the West in many facets, various facets, in which God was basically saying, if you eat of the tree of good and evil, I'm going to kill you. That was the message. If you do this, I'm going to kill you. Well, all of a sudden, God takes on a whole different appearance. Now he becomes this judge who is out to get us. In other words, in a very real way, all of a sudden we realize that God, who is this? Who is this God that we worship then? And we also know about the reality of conditional and unconditional love in our own lives. When we're experiencing someone who has conditional love toward us, that means I will love you if you do this. And I will love you if you don't do that. But if you do this, or you do that displeases me, I'm sorry, my love will be taken away from you. That's conditional love. Whereas unconditional love is, I will love you no matter what. I'm with you. You may fall, and you are still close to my heart. You are still close to me with love and affection. That is the God who we worship. And so today in the gospel we've heard the gospel that pertains to the final judgment. And we see a division between sheep and goats. And I guess anybody who's been on a farm for a while will realize the disposition of sheep and goats. Sheep follow their master. They continue to follow. And a goat basically goes their own way. They have no sense of following. They're quite independent. We know in our lives that sin estranges us from God, puts a wall up. And so God chastises us at times, corrects us to bring us back to our senses. We see that in last week's gospel, in which the prodigal son came back to his senses. He realized how miserable he was. In a sense, sin was its own punishment, wasn't it? And so this correction that takes place in our life on earth, God does out of love for us, like any loving parent. Not out of a sense of punishment for punishment's sake, but for the sake of correction, so that they would end up following the road that is life-giving to them. That is who God is. Now we have the final judgment, and Jesus is saying to those who did not see Christ in their brothers and sisters, who were in need, he would say, "Depart from me." What is he saying here, really? Is he just saying, "Get out of my sight. You blew it"? This is a lament. This is like he's looking at this person saying, I've given you free will, and you've chosen this path. I love you. I'll never cease loving you, but you've chosen this path away from me. And you're gonna experience darkness because I am life. You're leaving me, the source of all love. So when he's saying, "Depart from me," he's saying, okay, you've made this choice. I don't want you to do this because I love you, but you've made this choice. In the afterlife, there's no punishment anymore. The punishment takes place on earth. What happens is when we come before the judgment seat of God, our hearts are opened, and it is basically we who are judging ourselves. All those things that we've experienced in life, we bring with us to the next life. We are very conscious. And if we contain this wall of bitterness, of hatred, in a very real sense, the elder son last week, going back to last week, is really an embodiment of hell. You know, he was bitter about his younger brother who came back. He did not want to rejoice in him coming back to life again. He basically wanted him to be punished. It was basically hatred in his heart and bitterness, and he couldn't even go back into the party, it seems, because he could not. He could not enjoy the feast because he kept, in his stubbornness, saying, "Nope, nope," and he put up the wall. In a very real sense, we judge ourselves. That's what happens. It is said that the road to heaven is heavenly, and the road to hell is hellish. And that's how it is. And so when we enter the afterlife, it is not God who sends us to hell. It is not that way. Basically, God invites us all into his kingdom. We're all invited into his kingdom. We're all invited into the banquet. In the afterlife, everything is surrounded by God's love. There is no place where God's love is not evident. It's not as if heaven is where God is dwelling and hell is the total absence of God. He wants nothing to do with these people. Fact of the matter is, God's love permeates all people. But then the question is, do I want to engage in this love relationship with God for all eternity? Or do I choose not to by my attitude? Are there people who will say, nope, I choose not this. This is the road I've taken. This is the road I've taken, and I will not go toward God. That is their decision, and their decision only. When God tells us, and when we hear the part in our prayers where we call God the lover of mankind, he is truly the lover of mankind. His love is unconditional. He doesn't change like we do. He doesn't change in his mood. He doesn't change whether he wants to do this or that. He is always loving. He is always forgiving. He is always pardoning us. He is always embracing us. It never changes. But apparently over the years, we kind of projected our own stuff onto God and made him like us in a way, in our attitudes and in our changeabilities about things. God never changes. And so that's why some heresies developed over the church years about people who are fathers of church who are trying to fix this mess of a loving God who will send you to hell for all eternity because that person has displeased him, has besmirched his honor. And so they tried to make hell kind of a temporary thing, or universal salvation for everybody, to try to make this kind of palatable, like make sense out of this. Well, no, that's not it either. They missed it. The fact of the matter is that no, hell is locked on the inside. And that's how it is. It's always locked on the inside. And because of that, we have this choice to make. Final thing. When we experience unconditional love with someone, we can't help but loving them in return. We're feeling this connection with them. We're feeling embraced by this love, and we're feeling peace in our hearts. And we want to please this person. That's what God calls us to be. It's not like checking if we're naughty or nice. That's not what God does. What God does is he bestows his love upon us and says, this is who I am for you. Be this way for others. And you will experience life at its fullest. You will experience peace. You will experience deep down joy. And we've all experienced that. When we give of ourselves to someone out of love, how do we feel inside? We feel a lightness of spirit. We feel alive. What happens if we hold things and isolate ourselves and just, this is all mine, and I'm not going to, I'm not going to share this, or I'm just, everything is about me, me, me. Well, those people are miserable because they're all caved in on themselves, and that is hell. And so, in a very real way today, we're experiencing good news here because we are talking about God's love and a free will that he has given us that he will always respect. He will never run roughshod over our free will. He respects that so much that he's not going to force us to do anything. That's how much he loves us. And so his grace that he gives us every moment of our life, is an invitation to enter more deeply into his life and to enter more deeply into relationship with him. That's what he calls us to do. And if we decide to put up a wall between us and God, well, that's our choice. God's not building that wall. We are. And so, in a very real way, God has made this kind of easy for us because we are loved with a love that is so tremendous that we can't even measure it. That he's with us every moment in love, in embracing. He calls us by name. He leads us. He guides us. He shows us a mission that he is giving us specifically for us in our life. I mean, wow. You know, when you think about it, how wonderful it is, this relationship that God has with us. And how tragic it is when people turn away from it. And that is why Jesus wept at Jerusalem. Because he was offering them everything, and they rejected him. And so today we have this great opportunity as we journey through Lent together to deepen our relationship with God and to see those parts in our lives, examining our hearts. Because we remember that in judgment, it's not especially we judge ourselves by what we have done, the specific things that we have done, but who we are inside, in our hearts. So Lent is a time to examine our hearts and to see, what am I coming toward God here in his love, or am I walking away from God? Am I separating myself from God and his life? And so this is an exercise, too, of preparing for eternal life and knowing that God is there to point these things out for us. And if we do feel corrected at times, that is always out of love, so that we come back to our senses like the prodigal son did, and to return back to the embrace, the loving embrace of the Father. Blessing of the Lord be upon you through his grace and love for mankind, always, now and ever, and unto the ages of ages. Amen.